What is up? I'm Miguel Antonio, and you are listening to the Live and Create podcast. It's where I interview artists and entrepreneurs about what it means to live a great life and create great things. And before we jump into the podcast, I'd love for you to check out my band, Run With It. Here is a clip from our song, Time.
Time, you left your scars. Hope was there. I gave her my heart. Hope, take me in your arms. I see the path, but it seems so far.
If you like what you heard, make sure you check us out at Run With It Band, at Run With It Band, everywhere you follow people at, or go to runwithitband.net. It'll take you to all the different links you want to go to, and there'll be a little button you can click for booking information. Now for today's podcast. Well, dude, you know, we went from sitting in feedback sessions online to getting lost in Atlanta together. We've had a journey thus far in less than a year.
Oh,
That was hilarious. We were like,
my apologies, man.
right hotel, well, right hotel name, wrong one. Like,
It's because I didn't have these on when I was looking at it, and I was like, oh, that's the right hotel. And then didn't realize it was like in BFE.
and we're just nerding out about compression or limiters or something, and
All the
did
new-
not even notice. It's like 30 minutes had gone by.
The new VSTs are like, yes. So, yeah.
Yeah, That's what happens when you get people nerding out on gear. We get lost in Atlanta.
definitely have that in common. I can do that all day. I can talk about that stuff all day. So, it's all
Well, maybe
good.
we'll get into some nerding out somewhere in here as well.
Nice.
The listeners are like, okay, I'm out. No, unless they like nerding out. Maybe you like
Yeah.
nerding out there.
Hopefully.
Well, dude, you've done the full rock star life, touring all over, right?
Yeah.
Doing all the
yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I tried the tour thing, and then, tried to make the gold record thing, and, it was fun. Hard,
Right.
but it was fun. Yeah.
How many years were you touring?
Gosh, so I toured in, let's see, 4 bands. So that was probably, gosh, at least 8 years.
Okay, so yeah, you put a lot of time in. What were the rotations looking like? Were they bands that are out all the time? Were they 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off? Like, how did that break down for you guys?
Some were 2 weeks on, some were 2 weeks off. But one of the bands that I was in, we did a month and actually 5-week tour, which sucked. That's when I found out that I did not have a love for touring.
Were
I
you
think
guys doing buses or vans, or what did that
Yeah,
5 weeks look?
My singer, it was a van tour, so he had a Ford.
okay.
One of those Ford, not Astro van, but
Like
God, I can't
transits
remember.
or something?
Yeah, not even a Transit. It was the ones before it. I want to say F-150, but that's not it. That's a truck. It was kind of like, oh gosh, I can't even remember the name. It was like the standard tour van, the white van with the windows.
I know some. We had a gray one when we were doing it, but yeah, ours was a Dodge. But I think I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like 12-passenger van, enough space in the back to put your gear and the merch, and
Yeah.
So you did 5 weeks in a van tour.
That was horrible.
That'll teach you something real quick.
That was
if you're in or not.
So the band that I was in, they were called Black Men Boots, and we thought we knew each other pretty well, and then when we decided to do this tour, like all of us, it was kind of funny. It was 2008, which is, I'm dating myself, but it's we all got laid off from our jobs, so we're like, screw it, let's just go on tour.
Yeah,
exactly.
Might as
And then so we're like, okay, we planned this tour out, and then by the end of the tour, we were just like, because we had played like our first 2.5 weeks. It was almost every night that we played, so it was like we would play late, and then we'd have to get into the van and then drive to our next location, which could have been anywhere from 5 to 8 hours. And then you're just driving all night and you're totally beat, and you're just, everything is just especially me, like making me grouchy. And I was just like, "Ah, if I could take my drums into the club and,
Singer walks in with his microphone, like, hey. Us diva singers were like, my God, it's so hard, it's so tough, and you're like, I will stab you with my I don't know, hi-hat stand.
oh my God. And I have this original Pearl reference kit when it came out. And it's like the shells are so heavy. And it's like, it's not a light drum set, and it's a great drum set, but it's not light. It was just like, damn, dude, gotta haul this thing in again. But it was cool. Like looking back, it was cool. But shortly after our tour, the band broke up. And then, yeah.
You all were like, I'd be cool not seeing you anymore. Was it almost like that, or just kind of like this? Oh, okay.
Yeah, my guitar player, I don't want to say his name, but he flipped out and actually joined a monastery to become a monk.
So this tour taught people a lot about themselves. He went and became a monk. Is he still a monk? Did you ever keep up with him?
No, actually, I just heard from him recently, and he dropped out. So he's back east now. But he's I think he's working for a newspaper. But he used to be a like a copyright editor guy. I don't know, for a newspaper. When he got laid off in 2008, I think that was a big like stress for him because he, everything was going digital at that time, and then he couldn't find anything, and then he was just flipping out the whole time. We were on tour, and he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do when I get back, and all those worries.
Right. So one became a monk. You decided it wasn't for you. Everyone went their own direction. Did you jump? But after that, was that the last straw for you with that touring life, or did you try a few others in the hopes that maybe that would work out better?
No, my last band, we did a small tour, 2-week tour, and then it was okay. It's just, I don't know. It's just I hate the downtime. Like for me, like when you're driving to locations and then I'm thinking in the back of my head, God, there should be something else I could be doing instead of just driving, and listening. But it was cool, like but it's just like I could be writing music, or I could be practicing, or I could, So
yeah, I remember when we were going pretty strong as a band, it was like 1 to 1.5, sometimes closer to 2, and on and off. We did that for like 2 years. I got an iPad and I started learning how to like do production in the back of the van, because it's like, you got an 8-hour drive to the next thing, and that's where I started catching the bug for production. I mean, it was terrible production. But I started catching the bug for it at that moment. So
yeah.
Were you producing at this time as well, or were you just living as a drummer specifically?
Yeah, the last few bands that I was in, so the last 3 bands, we were using backing tracks and samples and stuff like that. That's when I kind of caught the bug of producing. When I first started, I had the old Digi 2001 or 001. And that was back in, I think 2002 or 3. So I started recording band demos, and I was like, oh, we could use this for like backing tracks, synths, and whatever, and then trying to get bands to buy into that was so hard at that time, because they're like, oh, that's cheating. And that's, it's like,
bet. Yeah, but so many people still have a hard time buying into it. And it's like, bro, this is literally how everyone does it now.
Yeah. And then at that point too, I started recording all the band's demos that I was in, and then kind of cut my teeth that way. But and then eventually I started, like, things started getting better. Like the 001 was horrible. It was Digidesign, which was the old Pro Tools name. And then
that I wasn't even familiar, because I'm so new to this game. I'm like, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, so now they're with Avid. So, but when Digidesign had them, and they had that first like commercial interface for home studios, and it was just like, it was proprietary, so you couldn't use any other plugins except theirs. And
of
course, the computers at that time were crappy. So, you'd record or try to record, and it would cut out like halfway through, or like just at the beginning, and you're like, dang it, this thing's not working. It was so frustrating. And then after that, like I got rid of that, and then I got into Sonar. I got a new, which I still use today. It's a new interface. They're all interface, and it still jams. And that was probably in 2005 or 6.
Nice.
But I've had it for all this time, and it's still, it's my portable one, not the one that I have in my studio, but it's awesome. And I'm glad I bought that thing, because I wasn't sure what I was buying. So I'm like, well, I might as well buy something that seems advanced. I had no idea what I was doing.
That's good. That's like that's honestly every plugin I buy right now. I'm like, I have not. So I bought Valhalla Shimmer off of your recommendation back when we were in Atlanta. So that was November. I don't think I've purchased another plugin since then, though, because I realized, I realized like even that one plugin, I'm like, there's so many things in this one plugin. I was like, and then I looked at the myriad, like I was on a plugin buying like spree all last year. And then all of a sudden I was just like, I think I got more than I may be able to ever know how to use until
Yeah.
one day. But most of the time it's like, yeah, that sounds cool. I'll get it. And then I get into it. I'm like, oh my God, I have no idea what's going on.
I know. Yeah, God, some of them. Yeah, you're right. Some do so much, and then I feel like on some of them, I'm just at the tip of the iceberg. And I'm like, oh, this is cool reverb. I'll use it for that. But I didn't know it had a
Right.
gate feature. I didn't know how, like all this stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, kind
Yeah.
of
I feel
neat.
like every time I drop a plugin now and I start tweaking with it, I'm like, oh yeah, I see a new feature that I had never even noticed. And that's where it keeps kind of reconfirming maybe I should stop buying plugins for a while.
Yeah. Well, that's funny. So I have like
For
a
me.
ton of plugins. Yeah, I have a ton of them, and then I only use like every time I record, I'm like, oh, I'll use this one like eventually, and then I never use it. And I always use the same core plugins. It's like, okay, well, I should probably get rid of the ones that I don't use, but I just keep them on just in case.
Right. Too bad we can't sell them like
I
used
know.
gear. That'd be awesome. It's like you could keep all the presets,
Yeah.
there's if the, I mean if they're from me, they may not be that valuable, but it's it's it would be pretty fantastic because yeah, there's some where I'm like, yeah, I'm never gonna use that again, I don't think. But
Yeah.
maybe one day
Yep.
it'll be there.
Yeah. And
Now,
it's funny. Go ahead.
oh go ahead. Go ahead.
It's just funny. I just never want to throw them away because I'm like, well, I paid for it, and I know I'm going to use it eventually. And then like 5 years down the road, what's this plugin? Crap! I still have this thing. So
Absolutely. Well, with the touring life, I know we're going to talk heavy about sync here in a minute. I'm curious for you though, is it something that you're completely like have no desire to do, or maybe one day, but under certain contexts? Like, what's the live bug for you currently?
I'm not opposed to touring. The only thing that I hated was, we had some like really good shows. I think it was like the really good shows that would keep us going, where there was, a great crowd and stuff. And then you'd go to those places where like there's one or two people, and you're like, oh my God, I drove out to El Paso for this, and then,
Play for the
um,
bartender.
yeah, pretty much,
Yeah.
and then, yeah. So I think if it was better organized, I think if the band was a little more well known, because at the
Hmm.
time, we didn't. With Black Man Boots, I keep referring to those guys at the month tour or month and a week tour. We really didn't have like digital correspondence with anybody. Everything was mailed out, and we had we had to do our own little posters, which I have. Oh, I don't have one on the wall, but we had to do our own little posters, and then we'd send them to music stores, and then all the places that we were playing at, and that kind of sucked. Like that was just like,
Yeah. That sounds terrible.
yeah, it was hard. So we like instead of practice days, we do like mailing days. But I think if like I said, if the band was like a little more well known, a little more established, then yeah, I would do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you still have that hunger. And it's interesting because the sync world, you meet some people who are like completely done with it. For me, it's like I perform solo quite often, but from a touring standpoint, there'd have to be the right situation. I still see it in my
Yeah,
future, but like the right situation. But yeah, the sync world, I think I would run across a lot of folks who are like, yeah, I kind of don't ever want to do that again. And I get it though. I get it. But yeah, if I do it again, I don't want to do it like we did it before.
yeah,
And I'm grateful that I got that opportunity. It sounds like you're kind of in that same boat too. It's like there's so many things I glean from that season that I think will help in the future. But
yeah. And I think too, well, like you, I think like when you play live as opposed to just being a musician that comes in hasn't played live at all. I think it helps like especially like when you're mixing and recording because what that live sound is, and
the
like
feel,
yeah, that feel, and you just want it to just be, like I love stuff that's like in your face, and just you
right?
can hear everything. But I think, and then that kind of like you can get that, hopefully the dynamics in there. Yeah. I mean, dynamics are a big thing too, as you know, and
Hmm.
yeah, just and get that space, so it's kind of like, like, okay, where does the bass sit? Where does the guitar sit? And it's just, I think it helps a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah, it would be strange. Like if you haven't seen live bands, at least seen live music, especially when it comes to drums, I think mixing drums, because often when I'm mixing them, I'm thinking about like if I'm watching the band and how I want it to feel and see. And maybe it's unique of working with rock versus like hip hop because I don't really mix for hip hop or anything. I really only live in the rock world. I don't know if
Yep.
it's different or not.
Yeah. Yeah. And and then another thing that was cool about it too was like the experiences, like you'd mentioned, just some cool people that I've met. You
Mm-hmm.
kind of get thrown into these situations where you're like, oh, hey, that celebrity's here. Or, for example, at my old band, Spare Parts for Broken Hearts, we were playing at, I can't remember the name. I think it's Harvard and Stone in LA. And then Shaun White was there. And we're like,
Nice.
holy crap. Yeah, that was kind of,
You're like,
you know,
whoa.
yeah. Or you play these cool festivals, we played like, we went to South by Southwest and played at the Music Tastes Good Festival, which is in Long Beach, and all these cool places that you play. It's so much fun. But like
Absolutely.
those shows make it worth it, because there's like 1,000 shows where you're kind of like, why am I here? Why am I doing this? And then when you get those, nice, cool shows, you're like, yes, you get that bug again, and it kind of keeps you going. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, I look forward to the day. I still see it. It's in the strategy of what we're doing, but yeah, definitely want to approach it differently than we had before. But yeah, there are a lot of just cool moments. You talk about meeting people. We did a showcase with Cupid, from the guy who
oh no,
sings the Cupid Shuffle. He
yeah,
just happened to be on the same showcase as us. And we're backstage and we're getting to talk to him. Super nice dude. And he's like, hey, my DJ can't make it. Can one of you guys be my DJ? And so
no,
he ended up pulling our drummer up there. And all it was space. Like, all you had to do was hit spacebar for a 15-minute like showcase. That was it. So my drummer was like dancing and hyping up the crowd. And he'd do a big old like space bar. We were just giving him shit when we got back to we were like, look, Daniel was like rocking that space bar. But it was those kind of moments, like, that's
yeah.
pretty unique. And it was fun watching Daniel up there dance with him and do that crazy stuff. Hey, did the live thing, man. You started falling in love with production. Where did you get bit by this whole sync licensing bug? Where did that come from?
So God, was it about 2 years ago? All my bands, we always talked about, like, oh, this song would be great on a TV show, but we never really knew how to do it. And there was never really at that time, like, well, at least I didn't know about any communities that would help you do it. But I probably wasn't, thinking back, I probably wasn't that proactive at even searching for it. But when I left my last band, when that fell apart, I was kind of like, God, I'll try to try my hand at like mixing and mastering online for people. And I did okay with that. I did, it was all right, but it wasn't like anything that moved the needle very much. And then I'm like, gosh, man, I got to do something that's going to, be worthwhile, something that's mine. And then I kept seeing Josh, his videos on YouTube, like the video shorts, and then, like the little commercials. And I was thinking, well, maybe. And I kept putting it off because I went to like Reddit, and I looked up stuff about, those communities or classes, and people were like, don't do it. Don't do the class. It's a ripoff and stuff like that. So, but then I was like, well, I don't have anywhere. I don't know who to send stuff to. I don't know how to even send it, And then there's one commercial that Josh put out, and I think that was on Instagram, and I watched it, and it just totally made sense. And he's like, I can help you with like where you need to go and how to do it. And I'm like, he answered like every question in that ad, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna try it. So I
You're like,
tried
I
it.
wish someone would help me. And the video is like, this is how I can help you. I wish I knew exactly which licensing companies read. This is the.
Exactly.
You're like, oh my
And
God.
it's like, it was something like, do you have music on your hard drive? You're wasting money and all this stuff, and you're losing money. And he's like, the process isn't as hard as people think it is. And it's like, I kind of makes sense. And he seemed genuine. So,
Right. I'm gonna
so I
have to
figured, well,
start. I'm gonna have to start charging Josh J. Will for these podcasts, because man, we there's so many stories like this though, and it's the same for me, where it's just like I knew him. I realized I knew him from playing in bands in Kansas City, but I didn't connect that. I just saw. I started following him online as J. Will and talking about sync licensing, and I had never made the connection until later, that I was like, oh shit, yeah, like somewhere along the lines our bands had crossed paths. But it was the same kind of thing where it's like I felt so ignorant to the world but wanted to know it. And then all of a sudden comes this thing. But I was hesitant too, but I'd also, throughout my life, I have found courses and those things that a lot of people will judge you like, oh, it's just a waste of money. It's like, after a lot of research, realizing, no, it's not. I've learned a lot from this thing. And, even like there's a guy named Rick Barker, who does like social media. He was Taylor Swift's like first manager. He helped her get her first gold record. And that was one of the first times where we were really skeptical as a band, but he was selling like this course on social media. That's his specialty. And we ended up investing a significant amount of money into it. But because of the things we learned, that's why we were able to start touring and building a following like all over the world at that season. It was back in 2016 for us. So luckily that had happened. It was like it was like, okay, this worked out really well if it's the right person. And then damn, after that first month being in the group, I was like, yeah, this is worth every penny. Let's go.
Cool. Cool. That's
What when you joined the community, jumped in, what were there any surprises for you? Were there things where you're like, oh, I didn't know it was like this?
Yeah, the way he set it up was pretty cool because it's almost like a game. It's like goal oriented, so you hit certain levels, and then I thought that was really cool. And then the way it was organized, it's like first you start out with figure out what you specialize in, and then after that you kind of do your own research on the agencies and the libraries that would take your specialty, as far as the music's concerned, and then getting ready to pitch, but you have to do your EP first and then getting that approved, and I thought that was cool. So there's all these steps, and it was kind of like, to me, it just seemed like a competition in a game. Like it was just a lot of fun to do. And then I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah, I can do this. And it's like almost like baby steps to where it's not super overwhelming, where it's like, oh my God, you got to have like 30,000 songs, and you have to be an established artist. And that's what kind of I was worried about, because I was like, "Oh, I don't know if I have enough content. I don't know. I'm an independent artist and I have a small, tiny following, and it's just like,
Right.
how am I going to break through? But yeah, he's kind of put that all at ease and just like, dude, don't worry about it. You have your music, we all listen to it in the community, which I love. I love that feedback. And then I love when we do the, the Monday Q&As and also the Wednesday stuff. And then, you get this feedback and it's great because it kind of makes you feel better and kind of makes you feel like builds your confidence a little bit more. But then it also too, like Josh, like he points out, like my mastering game isn't all that. Like my ego's like,
I get a lot of notes, so I feel you. That's good.
but it's cool because he knows what he's doing, and you have somebody that's successful doing it, and he's like your mentor, and your coach, and you just kind of those are the things that I love the most. Just it's like a game. You have a community that gives you feedback, and then you have a coach like that right there. So to me, it was totally worth it. And then like within the first few days when I was looking through the program and everything, and then all the posts from people, I was hooked.
Yeah. Yeah, that part's been cool. And the feedback, I think, is huge, man. And not just the feedback I get for my own stuff, but then it's like, it's so interesting because sometimes there'll be tracks where I'm just like, I wish one day I would be able to like mix a song to that level. And then they'll give that track a feedback.
Yeah.
Like a little note. And I'm like, what? Okay. And so I'm like trying to attune my ear to like a whole other level because I'm like, bro, this sounded pristine. And not obviously they're not shitting on it by any means. They're trying to help it get better, but it's so even hearing feedback of other tracks and like taking notes in man, like I know I wouldn't be able to do anything that I'm doing right now without joining the group. And yeah, it's been cool.
Yeah, that's kind of nice. Because usually, like when I send stuff out to your family or your friends, you get that like, oh yeah, it's really good. Like they don't want to hurt your feelings. And it's like, be honest with me, like hurt my feelings. If it sucks, tell me it sucks.
Yeah,
you take it.
And you're like, what about that bass? Listen to the bass. Doesn't it sound like shit? It sounds like shit, right? Tell me.
Put it in their head, yeah. And that snare, I've changed it.
Well, like, and what's been cool too is not even the feedback sessions, but then now as all of us, as you're in it, you start vibing with certain people and like. For us becoming friends and then everyone hanging out in Atlanta together, I think kind of help bolster that. And there's people who are actually haven't even stayed in the group that I stayed in touch with, where now it's like, I feel like I'm surrounded by an army of producers that I really trust.
Yeah, exactly.
That I feel are much further down the road than me. Like where, I texted you that one song. I'm like, hey, I got to upload this tomorrow. Could you, any way you could give me some feedback that would help? And it's like, oh, okay, cool. Having that, even those personal touches of like, if someone's sending like a text of, fix this is great. And like I said, sometimes it's just like, I can get out of my head. It's like, okay, it's not as bad as I thought. And sometimes it's like, oh yeah, the bass did sound like shit. I need to fix it. Whatever it was.
I don't know about you too. Like when I'm mixing, I know I should take breaks and I never take breaks. Like I'm sitting there and I'm like, I just want to grind it out. And then your ears just play tricks on you. And it's like a mental game. And you're like, does this sound good? And you're like, I think it sounds good. And then you crank it out.
I have to put a timer on this baby. Sit here. And the timer goes off. And sometimes I'm like, I just need to tweak this one little setting a little bit more. And then maybe I'm going to adjust the master. maybe, okay, now I'm going to bounce it. I'm not going to listen to it. I'm going to bounce it. I'm going to come back later, but now it's bounced. So maybe I'll just listen to it right now. It's like, dude, you got to walk away.
I know. Yeah. It's so hard. But
Because when I started, I've had issues with my left ear
okay.
from performing live. Excuse me.
That's
And so we had to get really serious about our inner system and about how things were mixed and how the click sounded. I mean, every little nuance and tones for live performing. I had to go invest in some really good in-ears, all that. Because I was like, I can't lose my hearing. I walked away from one of the biggest shows we had at that point. It's outside Arrowhead Stadium. It's like a big, like crazy thing. It was loud as hell. So it's like everything was competing. And I walked away not being able to hear that night. I watched the rest of the game that night with like it sounded like, and
yeah.
I was like, this is not good. And it scared me. This is, it's been probably 4 years ago now, 3-4 years ago. And so ever since then, I've done a lot. I went to the doctor. They actually did an MRI because just to make sure nothing, was going on. And just came down to like, I was abusing my hearing.
Wow.
And so, yeah, everything down to my AirPods, the level I play them at when I'm at the gym, how long I will. I went on a long tirade to say that when I started mixing, I kind of figured all those things out to where my ears were healthy. And when I started mixing, I started getting like stabbing pains because the way I approach most things is I try to go all in. And so I was sitting there for 8 hours, 10 hours, nonstop, headphones in with detailed listening, and then wondering why it felt like someone was stabbing me in the ear. And that's when I think it was Dan Haw, had told me he went through the same process and had to set a timer, 45 minutes or hour.
Yeah.
And it did change it. And it got me back to where, again, my ears are healthy. But yeah, because I still try to push past it. But now it's like, sometimes it's like past the hour, it's like hour and 10 minutes. And then I'm like, someone might be stabbing me in my ear later.
Yep. Yeah. I have kind
off.
of a similar story. I was with this band called Lo-Fi Champion, and we were playing at the Glass House in Fullerton. It's kind of a big place. And it was on a weeknight, and the sound guy didn't come in. So the manager's like, oh, I can do sound. And so next to my set, there was this massive, like refrigerator sized monitor, looked like a bass amp. And then I was playing.
That makes me cry to think about.
And I was playing, and all of a sudden I just heard this like loud like feedback, and it literally almost knocked me over, like off my chair, because it hurt so bad. And then kind of like you, like when I stopped playing, it was all distorted, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, I messed up. My best friend was there and his wife, and then Wendy, my wife, was there, and she was just like, I'm like, babe, I can't, I trashed my ear. Like I think I either like lost my hearing, and it was like that for about a week. And then I didn't go. I should have went to the doctors, but I didn't. And then after a week, it kind of calmed down, and then everything came back. But I was wearing like earplugs and stuff to try to get it to stop. And then from that point on, then I started wearing earplugs, and then also I had my in-ear monitors too that I bought. And then that was just, it was scary. I mean, I feel
and in this world, and that's even when I perform solo now, I take my in-ear rig with me. I have like a smaller in-ear rig that's just for my solo gigs, and I do full in-ears. It's just me. Even if it's like a little winery, I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I'm dropping this in. I'm putting my in-ears in. It's going to be, and sometimes I just have just enough to kind of hear, and I keep it that low. When I perform with a wedding band, and anytime there's like so many singers that anytime I'm not singing, I actually turn it to 1. So I don't hear anything. I just can feel the drummer, and I know the choreography. I know where I'm supposed to be, but the only time I know my part's about to come up, so I'll roll it back up, and because I'm like, I just can't risk it anymore. Especially because this like, it's wild to me that this world, the Sync Alliance, or not Sync Alliance, but the Sync world, like this is something we could be doing, however old we are, like unless you're Buddy Guy, you're probably not going to go on tour when you're 70, it's like, but this is something where ideally our ears are good and we're healthy enough to keep going. I think that's an exciting thing about this world as well. When you look at like these steps you talked about in the group, where would you say that you are like in the path?
I'm still in the pitching phase. So I got fortunate enough to get one library, which is Audio Sparks. And then I have another one, which
That's
is
awesome.
And then Centric Music, which is open to everybody. I didn't realize that until I ran down Josh's list, and I was like, "Oh, Centric Music." And then, but it's more like they call themselves a sync agency, but they're more like a kind of like a Costco type.
Huh. Okay.
Because they have
like people can come there and search, and it might pop up in the metadata type stuff.
Yeah, and you can put your stuff up there. I'm kind of on my second round of pitching. So I pitched kind of at a bad time. I pitched starting at the end of October and then November. So the holidays were there. But I figured, I'll just try that. And then 30 days later, I can repitch again. So I'm at that point now. So I need to come up with another EP, which I think I have enough songs for. I gotta check. And then I'll hit those guys up again. But I'm only, as far as the list is concerned, I'm only at the upper echelon of those both lists. So I still have a lot more to kind of go through and research. But so kind of like at that point. But it is kind of
in the grind of the pitching. And then it's the grind of the music afterwards. It's like each one is the grind.
And the heartbreak too, because on Disco I see a couple of some of the agencies, like I can see the names of the people that have and I'm sure you can too, that have listened to it.
I have not set that up. Dan was telling me about that yesterday, where he pitched EP we have done together, and I was like, damn, I am not utilizing Disco to the level that I should be, because what you're explaining there, that you can go see, I need to get that set up.
Yeah, it's that little alarm thing, and then you look at it and you're like, that's not somebody from my class or from the sync agency or alliance. And then you're like, oh, that's the guy from, whatever agency. And I'm like, why hasn't he called me back? Why didn't I get an email? You're like, so
you got painful.
Yeah, and I was talking to Josh about that. I'm like, how do you follow up with that? Like, do you say, hey man, like, what'd you think of the CD?
Saw you creeping on my song, bro.
and you don't want to be that guy that's like, hey, what? Did you listen to it?
You opened it.
Yeah. Did you like it?
What'd you think?
Yeah. So that kind of sucks. But yeah, I figure, I'll give it some time and then follow up with that person, later, maybe with a new EP and just say, hey, got another EP. So, but
it was interesting. I can't remember the supervisor that mentioned this, but he talked about how he just searched his email. He was that somebody came in looking for a thing he didn't really work with. So he went and did a search in his Gmail, and he said email from 2 years prior that he had never even opened, because he's like, I get 1,000 emails a day. I'm sorry, guys. It happened to be a band that had reached out to him 2 years prior. He finally opened it, listened to their music, because whatever he searched kind of dinged whatever metadata they had in it. And he's like, their song was perfect. I got to give him a call. We ended up getting it placed for them. And he's like, it gave me so much hope that it's like some of these people who never even get back to us, maybe one day, if you do that enough, those things start, growing over time. So yeah, it made me think about how I write my emails too. It's like,
yeah, definitely.
I need to write these better.
Yeah, exactly. Like on ChatGPT, I use Josh's input thing, and that helps write emails. But then it's still kind of like, you're like, is that like personable or is that professional enough? And then go through and change it a little bit. But yeah, that, and then you think about it, you're like, I don't know if I like how this sounds. And, so, but whatever.
Yeah, it's so hard to tell too, because there's some people that I've met, like, who seem really like professional and you want it like straightforward. And there's other folks that I've talked to, like sync agents, where they're like saying all kinds of crazy shit when you're sitting there talking to.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, we're just vibing. So yeah, that's hard too, to know, like, and there was one I tried where the website, even like the language they had on their website, it just seemed like people that I was going to go get a beer with, and we'll probably end the night with tequila shots.
Yeah.
So that was the direction I went with the email when I pitched. I never heard back from them. So maybe I guessed wrong. Maybe they didn't even see it. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure your stuff is awesome. So I think it's just, again, it's time too. Like, they have so many, emails I'm sure they get a day, and, having to get through them. So
absolutely. Well, that's cool. When you've been reaching out to people, are there any specifics that you feel like you've learned along the way when you've paired all the teachings together?
Yeah, I didn't really understand when I first joined the Sync Alliance. I didn't understand like the payout breakdown. Like exclusive, non-exclusive, the upfront, and then the back end. I didn't know that until when I go on these websites, and then you read like what their the payout or commission setup is.
Mhm.
And then I'm like, oh, okay, now I kind of get it, but I'm still kind of iffy about like, okay, what's a good split, because like some people are, like I think there's a couple that I ran into that were 60-40, some were 50-50, and you're like, is 60-40 worth it, or
Right.
should I be exclusive? That's another thing too, because I on Audio Sparks, what they do is like you can be exclusive, and they put the pricing like when you upload your song, I don't know how they do it, but they generate the pricing and then they generate like the buyout price. And I don't know if they have like an algorithm or something that listens to your song and then it generates it that way. But
That's very interesting.
yeah, but then I'm like, "Hi," and then I'm on the fence too, like, should I be should the song be exclusive for that
Right.
library? And then because I don't have any, placements yet, so I wanna get my foot in the door, but at the same time, I don't wanna get, reamed, if they use like a nationwide or national campaign on it or something and for an ad, and then you get, $200.
Yeah.
You
You're
know,
like, great.
so there's always that, like, that thing, the voice in the back of your head, like, "Oh, don't do it, don't do it."
Uh-huh. Yeah, and I still feel like I'm still just wrestling to understand some of those breakdowns, and kind of like you said, where I didn't even realize, I thought I understood my deal, but then found out it was better, like it worked, it was happy information, but I thought there were back end splits as well for my particular deal, and just found out there's only a up front, split. And I was like, oh man, okay, in a sense I got lucky.
Nice.
But yeah, but I do know people where it seems like they have back end splits, or there was one company that they were interested, but they wanted to, like you said, own all the rights, like basically like not like just take ownership of the songs. And I was like, I know some people who have said they didn't have a problem with that. But for me, I was like, at least at this point, I didn't feel like I wanted to go that direction. Maybe it'll make sense later when I understand the business better. But yeah. And for me, it's been learning, like, I've been in the music world for years, and this is like a whole different business
Yeah,
is what
totally.
it feels like.
Yep.
That part has been kind of crazy too for me.
Yeah. Are you, so you're, if I could ask you a question, the Sync Alliance and doing Sync, but
Mhm.
you're still trying to promote your band, right? You're still trying to, you
Yes.
guys are putting out, that's tough. That's like, I think that's
It's
like
it's a
very
rough
admirable.
game.
It's hard, man.
Thank you, man. Yeah, it's a rough game. For my goals, I know I I want, like, I foresee touring again one day, but everything's kind of shifted, which
Yeah.
has not made things easy, unfortunately. But things have shifted to where it's like, actually sync is the number one priority for me. Writing songs is the number one priority. That's where the band's kind of shifted over the last 15 months, where I've tried to get us to that direction, because I see the opportunities there, and I see the opportunities for wealth, not just one gig. Even if even if we got one big gig, great money, but it's like that gig's over then,
Mhm.
and it's like when I'm thinking, when I have grandkids, when I have this kind of legacy, what's going to keep coming, and realizing sync can do that, but also seeing the opportunities of how people are finding music now, where I've even caught myself. We were listening to This Is Us, or watching This Is Us, a show.
Mhm.
It's been over for a few years, but
Love that.
incredible music. And I think, one, you have Mandy Moore in there, who was an artist. She's married to Taylor Goldsmith, who is one of the best songwriters in the world, in my opinion. And she I think her sister in the show was singing a song, and I was like, this sounds like a Taylor Goldsmith song. Just even though it was a female singing, I was like, this sounds like it. So I'm like going and looking up, this song, and come to find out he was the songwriter. He was the one who put it
No
all
way.
together. And man, and that's it. That hit me as well. I was like, listening to TV, it's like, oh, this is how so many people are discovering music. And I've seen bands even from this Kansas City area, like, get a Netflix placement, and they went from playing a small club in New York City on a tour to having to upgrade the venue because they sold out that, like,
Wow.
before they even got there. And I'm like,
That's
okay,
cool.
this is a better route than, like you said, going to Tulsa, Oklahoma, playing for bartenders on my way to a showcase, and hoping to God, the record executives think that, we all look cool enough to be potentially give us a terrible fucking record deal. You know what I mean? That was a literal tour that my previous band had done, where it's like, this is a terrible plan. Yeah. So doing that, and then the content piece for us. So trying to leverage. So the step one is like that, the songwriting, and then the content of like, how do we engage with this online world and help foster a following out of that. And then from there, learn where we can tour and build things. But yeah, it's been what, like you said, it's not easy, and realizing I'm having to just make a lot of hard choices and a lot of hard decisions of like my own time, of what the band does, of everything. And it's really saying there's this thing that I keep thinking about. It's like your life will be determined by the quality and the quantity of your no's. And like that just, I think it was probably Hermosi or somebody, I quote him all the time, who said it, but it's like, your life or your success will be determined by the quality and the quantity of the things you say no to. And it really hit me, because my band, I'm going on. I feel like I've been talking a lot today. I feel bad. I want to apologize to you. Kemi was earlier, and I felt like I overshared there too. But yeah, it was one thing I identified. My band, I had ended my band and walked away after we were just touring nonstop. We were seeing great success. We toured to the Middle East and back. We had fans like all over the world, because my drummer is brilliant at fostering like online community and stuff. But we had a meeting this week, and I was sharing with him and our guitarist. I was like, I do remember a specific moment where we sat down with someone who's interested in managing us. We had a huge whiteboard. We had a million things. We had all the things you should do as a band to be successful. And so it was a million things. And we were suddenly we were shifting from just writing original music, releasing it, and touring, to doing 50 things. And it wasn't long after that I completely crashed out. I burnt out. And like, we were at a place where I almost lost our house. Like we were all in. I took all the money that we had. I was full-time, all that kind of thing, seeing great success, but the money doesn't catch up in that world. And I was sharing with them. I was like, yeah, I think one big mistake was not just focusing on the two things that we were really good at for that time. And then as time goes on, those other pieces can fill in, and so that's where I'm assessing this. And when I see this world, man, watching the people in the community who are getting placement now after placement, they've been working their asses off. It's not easy. You know this.
Yeah.
I know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know. I'm like,
it's so inspiring, because I'm like, long term, this pays off in so many ways. And then everything else ideally will follow it. So that was a long tirade of, got me thinking of that.
No, I was talking to my wife last night, and this is like one of the hardest things I've ever done. Like out of any job I've worked, because it's like, if you feel like you're on your own, you feel that pressure. It's like, I got to get that placement, but it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done, because like the stuff that I'm coming up with, I'm like, wow, like after, creating a cinematic track, and you're like, I just created a cinematic track, like, and I've never done that before. And it's kind of takes you in areas that you'd never, and then, even the last brief that we had that for Little Kev.
Well, yeah. I remember that. I knew it was not my wheelhouse, so I didn't even try.
Yeah, I threw my song in, but it was kind of cool, because I was like, I saw it kind of late in the day, and I was like, I could probably do this, and then I listened to a Snoop song, and I was like, cool. But then it seemed like everything that day, like it would seem like the track was cursed. As soon as I hit record, something would happen, like I'd have to take a call, or like, somebody's at the door, and I'm like, dang it. But I was able to get it in on time, the next day. And I was like, wow, I did it. Like in 24 hours, I could, knock this thing out, and so it's kind of cool. Like you get that practice, and you get that, that kind of sense of accomplishment. And it's a good feeling, even though, it's super tough, but that's kind of the thing that keeps me going too. So it's kind of nice. Well,
and in that too, I hear like the power of focus of like where you said, this is what I'm doing, and I'm going to make it work, because and then all the shit starts happening, but you push through, and it's a world where I think that focus pays off too, what would you say, like, as far as niche, however you'd want to say that, what would you say the niche you're resting in at this point? Or are you still just kind of exploring different?
I think indie electronic is where I kind of fall. Like, it's funny, because like ever since I've been in bands, like starting at 14, like always been like punk bands, metal bands, grunge bands. So everything hard. And I've always wanted to get into like an electronic kind of indie, like new wave or dance type band, but nobody that I knew at the time could pull that off, musician wise. And then, so when I started producing my own stuff, I was like, oh, cool. I can write my own synth lines and, all this stuff. And, you got samples and, cool libraries and like, wow, I can totally do this and still keep the vibe of like rock, but make it indie electronic, with a rock aspect. So almost, well, I guess indie rock is what you, I guess, call it, I guess. But yeah, that's kind of where I gravitate towards. Like every time I write something, I kind of end up going the indie electronic, indie rock route.
Nice.
So, but I'd say more indie electronic.
Hell yeah. Well, I look forward to a collaboration one day as we go.
Yeah, me too.
That's going to be awesome, man. Well, and we were having such a good time talking. I'm realizing time's almost up for me. It's getting close. I imagine for you probably got a lot of things to do. So I have a few questions left. One, just about the nerding out. What are some tips you would give? Like for me. So I'm very much a white belt in the mixing mastering world. And what tips would you give someone like me? About a year into mixing and mastering, I've done it a lot, done a lot of learning, and maybe there's other people who are listening and very similar. What tips would you give to them? Like one or two, like, okay, now think about this.
That's a good question because your stuff is, you're so good at ready.
Thank you.
Every time I hear your stuff, it's pristine. But I would just, man, that's a good question. I think for me, like just keeping on top of like new technology and new VSTs, like love doing that. And then also too, like I was watching this one on Sonable's Smart Comp 3, the smart compressor.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, oh, this is cool. Like it looks like a time saver, I think I'll try it out, and then just knowing too, finding things. I mean, a lot of people like the old school way where they need hardware or they need like, VSTs that look like the hardware and they're locked into that. But then there's options that are coming out that I think streamline your workflow and just make things a lot faster, so you don't have to worry about. There's a plugin that I just got that's awesome, and I can't remember the name now. It's going to kill me. But anyway, for vocals, it'll basically take out, like lower your breaths. It'll pitch correct.
Wow.
And then it'll also, what does it do? Pitch correct. It takes that out, and it gates stuff too. Like it takes out the noise, and it's super fast. Yeah. So
it's good. Like,
is
it, as far as a pitch correction, is really natural?
It's pretty natural. Yeah. It's kind of like a light pitch correction.
Okay.
God, if I can find it. I can't, I don't want to spend time. Like,
that's interesting.
Remember later, but it just came out and I was like, oh, this is cool. And I saw like, I don't know if you go watch that guy in White Sea Studios on YouTube. He's like a German guy.
If I saw him, maybe I feel like I've gotten so many tips from YouTube.
Yeah, I know.
So, yeah, because that's interesting. It almost made me go like, oh, I don't know. Yeah. Just because that's where I spend most of my time is in tuning vocals, melodyne, and going through and cutting out every, breath and every little thing. But damn, if there's one that keeps it natural, because there's days where I'm like, I'm looking at like, 40, 50 vocal tracks. And I'm like, my God.
Yeah.
This
thing. Oh, and that's what it is. It vocal writes it too. So it compresses and vocal writes. So it's
really?
like, it's pretty
auto vocal writer too.
Yeah. And it's fast. So it's just like, and I was kind of blown away the first time I used it on a track I'm working with a guy outside of sync, but I used it on his vocals and I was like, whoa, I kind of was kind of like, maybe this might work. And then it worked great. And I was like, oh my God, I just saved like hours,
Does it time it as well? Will it time like doubles and triples, harmonies, that kind of thing?
No, it doesn't do that. It doesn't sync them together. But that's another thing too, like vocal aligner. Yeah. But this one,
I don't even know how people did vocals before Vocaline. When I reached out to Lorenzo Lucci, and because I really loved his vocal production, and he told me he used that and right before I did my first like full vocal track thing, and I was like, dude, that was insane. Like, I have no idea how they did it before using this program. That's worth every penny.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, I agree. That thing's like a lifesaver.
Well, man, it sounds like from your advice, I need to start buying plugins again.
Well, I don't know about buying, but that's dangerous road. But that's another thing too is like try to stick with the ones that you like and don't go. But it's hard because like you see something. Like, I always see something like, oh my God, I got to have it. But,
and I make that joke, but what I hear different in your advice than what I was doing is about like choosing plugins off of what you already know to make things more streamlined, make things better. I think my approach was just like, oh, maybe this reverb will change my life and finally make me a good mixer. You know, like maybe this thing will, and that's why I kind of stopped. But yeah, I definitely hear you in that sense of like, okay, because there are, now that I'm getting deeper and deeper in it, having to turn more and more things out, I'm like, there's some things I'm doing where I'm like, this is important, but man, this is hours.
Yep. Yeah. And it's hard too, because I like, when you go on YouTube, or if I go on like, I'll find a video. I just found one, which I should send the link. I should upload it for you, but it's for writing commercials for music. I mean, writing music for commercials, and really cool. Like I was like, dude, this is really awesome stuff. And so it's like finding the time to watch those tutorials, but at the same time, you got to time block your stuff and then work on, your music and then your life and, so.
And when you bring up that, I got 3 more questions for you if you don't have to run. If you have to run, I get it too. Day to day, what does your structure look like? Does it shift day to day? I was curious, like the time blocking and all that. What do you use to make sure you have a good system for execution?
Yeah, just going back to where I was saying that I hate taking breaks. Wendy, my wife, she's like, dude, you sit at your desk like for 12 hours a day. Like you got to get up and do something. And and I could feel it. Like, how like you don't exercise and you're just like, oh, I feel like, I feel like a slug. And so she's like, just treat it like work. You're working from, 7 to 4 or 8 to 5, whatever. And she's like, stop, like have a stop time. So like this morning, so I had to work on a friend's EP, which I've been kind of putting off. So I'm like, okay, I'll spend a couple hours this morning. I'm going to wake up at 7. I'll spend 2 hours, got to get the dog out at 9. And then I got to come back, get ready for you. And then after this, I'm going to go back to his EP for maybe a couple hours and then probably work on my own stuff. Or actually I got to do some more pitching. I need to get some more emails out. So try to do it that way versus before I would always like lock in to like one, like if I'm working on a song, I'm like, I got to finish it, and I like would never veer off that, and, but now it's like, okay, try to take it in smaller increments and like trying to just blast it out, if you have the time. I mean, if you don't, then it's like, okay, well, like that little Kev thing, 24 hours is like, oh God.
For this particular thing, you had to lock in.
Yeah.
In a sense, it's good. I think there's some people who don't know how to lock in for hours on end. So the fact that you start there and you have to pare it back maybe is an advantage for you, because when you're like, oh, that's a 24-hour thing, I can do that. I've done the sit at the desk for 12 hours.
And then another thing too is I'll try to figure out, like I'll have a notepad on my computer and I'll try to figure out, okay, what am I going to do tomorrow? Like what am I going to start with? Am I going to start like pitching or trying to pitch, or should I work on this project, or, and then I'll try to time block it that way. So I'm still kind of getting used to it, but it's something that, my wife was just like kind of instilled in me, is like, man, you gotta like not work on something for so long. And then, you just got to take breaks and you got to like really block your time and manage your time better. And so that's what I've been trying to do.
Yeah, I get that, man. That's for sure. There's been some, I get so locked into a project where there's times I've gotten home from a gig at 1 a.m. and just grabbed a bottle of wine and went back into my studio and just kept working.
That's what you did at the
That's like, I did that in Atlanta.
Yep.
I did it while we were out, because Omega was talking about that thing. You told me about Valhalla Shimmer. I was like getting a bottle of wine and I just sat there till probably 4 a.m. and I got that demo done. But yeah, like I'm like, this is not sustainable, Miguel. You can't.
Yeah. I remember those days, like, oh, I don't even know how I did it back then too. Like, staying out 2, 3 in the morning, you play, and then you have to get up at 6 to go to work, and it's just like, oh,
I remember there was times where I'd get in from the road and shower, and then I'm out again at like 5:30. Didn't even have time to sleep, and it's like to go to the day job, and it's like, man. Well, last 2 questions.
Okay, cool.
Based off the podcast.
Yeah.
This idea of live and create. So right now in your life, how would you define living a great life?
For me, it's being able to kind of make a living at what you love. I think that's the ultimate goal, because I've been, locked into like my past jobs or just, sales jobs, and I hated it, and you do that grind and you're like selling something for somebody else and you're like, they're making all the money. I mean, granted, you're getting a paycheck, but it's like, they're making all the money and you're not really creating anything. And for me, it's just like music, like you create something out of nothing and you have some cool stuff to show for it. And to me, that's like, that makes me feel like, oh my God, this is like, I feel like an artist, it's really, it's a cool thing. But yeah, I think ultimately like making a living what you're doing, and then also just being happy, with what you're doing. Because if, if you're not happy, then it's really not worth doing. So.
Sorry, I missed that last part. My headphones went out.
That's okay.
I think might have to buy new gear soon, but I apologize. I'm sure the podcast got it, but for selfishly, what was the last part you had said? The last few sentences there.
But if you're not happy doing something, then it's not really worth doing. It's just, it'll make you miserable. So like, my last few years when I was selling life insurance, it was just like, God, dude, like I felt like I always think of The Incredibles, like that thing when he's in the office and he has his head down and he's like, my God, that's exactly what I felt like. And it was just horrible. And my wife could see it. And even I was getting like grouchy with my supervisors. I'm like, this sucks,
Like, so I pretty much hate everybody. So leave me alone.
Stay away. Yeah.
That Incredibles, that's a great analogy of what that feels like, honestly, of like knowing you're built for something else and you find yourself in a place that's just not that.
Yeah.
I get that.
Not rewarding.
Well, last question. How would you define creating great things?
Man, I think creating great things. I think when you get to a point like where you like it, like when I'm mixing a track and I feel like I'm almost done. And then you hit that stopping point where you're like, hey, this track is done, and it feels so good. And even though it's like it might not be great to somebody else, but it's like in your mind and the way it feels when you accomplish it, to me, that's like making great things. Like you're like, man, I love this. This is something that I would listen to, but I don't care about, who cares? Like if somebody down the road doesn't like it, there's probably like 10 more people that do, so
right.
That to me is just like the ultimate. And like when you create and like the ultimate creative vibe, I guess.
I love it, man. Yeah, it's such a great feeling doing that. And now we get to do that over and over again in this world, in the single licensing.
I'm always thinking 2 minutes 30, stop it. 2 minutes 30. Yeah.
Well, I was just looking at the EP Dan and I just finished up and I realized like, all of them are like 210, 212, like somewhere in there. I'm like, it's like we were skirting that line, but they feel good. I think we're both proud of it and excited to make it happen. So I'm excited again. We'll obviously we'll be in touch. We'll connected, and I'm excited about collaborations in the future. Let folks know if they're wanting to reach out to you, collaborate, or pick your brain on some things. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
You can contact me through my email. It's microgiant222@gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks. Thanks for making the time. Thank you for listening to the Live and Create podcast. If you like what you heard, make sure you subscribe and leave a comment or a review.
The Live and Create podcast.